Hey everyone, Travis here with Monroe Film and Photo. In our last episode, we talked about what exactly you need to get started as far as storage and computer requirements to be editing wedding highlight trailers. So now we're going to actually dive in on this episode on getting started within the highlight edit. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So first off, one thing that I want to quickly go over is how we organize all of our raw footage. Today we're going to be working on Courtney and Sean. So you'll see here in their folder, I have just a folder that's called footage. So you'll see here in the footage folder, I have everything organized based off of either what camera it was or what audio recording device it was. And this is super important to do. Not only does it help within organizing within Final Cut, but also it's important for you because in case if you notice anything that went wrong, say some audio doesn't sound right, or maybe one of the video clips is kind of just weird looking, just something happened with it that doesn't look right, you can quickly go back and be like, okay, what camera was it? Do I need to check out the camera or was it a memory card issue? And then you can kind of do a little bit of testing back and forth and kind of figure out from there. So this is really why we keep everything organized. So with this then, we would go ahead and we'd create our own Final Cut project, which we already went ahead and did, and we'd import everything. So it's just a simple create the project. We always label it based off of the wedding date and the bride and groom's first names, and then import everything in, which we've already done. What we're going to do next now is we're going to organize all the footage in Final Cut. So what I like to do is I utilize the events in this situation. So the very first event that we have here is where all our footage is at. It's simply the date that everything was imported in. So from there, I have all the clips here. So now I'm going to start organizing them. So I'm going to create a couple new events. For this first one here, we're just going to label this as pre-ceremony. So I'm going to put any event that happened before the ceremony in here. If I'm shooting something that it's just like, it doesn't really, I have no idea where this might be used. It's just simply some shots that I got throughout the wedding day. That's what I put in there. Then the next event is going to be called the ceremony. Everything that's going to be part of the ceremony, I put it in there. Up next, we have Grand March dash speeches. And again, same thing, because we always kind of edit those things all together, I'm putting everything in there. And then we'll have first dances. And then I will create a folder called reception. And then finally, because we did some first looks on this wedding day, I'm also going to have one that's called first looks. Now we have these 6 different events that we have throughout the wedding day: ceremony, first dances, first looks, grand march speeches, pre-ceremony, and reception. Now I'm going to go through all these clips here real quick and just organize them into those folders. So like right here, I did drone shots right away. So I know with all these drone shots, that's just all random B-roll that I'm going to be using, and it would happen before the ceremony, so that just all goes in pre-ceremony. Boom. Now we have the audio here. So what I'm going to do here real quick is just go ahead and organize all of this here. So I'm also going to look at where the start and end times are. So for these, I'm just double checking that, okay, yep, this one's a 19-minute one, so that's definitely our first look audio. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that and put that into the first looks. All right, then moving along here, then now you see we have all these clips here. So this camera angle that we're looking at first, this is from my FX30. So those 2 shots. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that into the ceremony file. Then this one from the same camera, we got Grand March speeches. So that's all there as well. So we'll go ahead and put those in Grand March speeches. Then this one, I'm assuming is dance footage. Yep, right there. So I must have shot one clip. I just saw something going on and was like, hey, I'm going to grab this quick. So I'm just going to throw that in reception. And then going back here, take a look. There's our first dances right there. So that's one angle of the first dance. So I'm going to put that there. Now, coming back here, now this is my main camera. So I'm just going to roll through, just looking at all the different shots we got here real quick. And then we're just going to move along, move along, move along. I'm going quickly, just to make sure that I'm going to just grab all these events here once I get to my first look, because that's kind of how our date went. So there's our first looks. We never really use these except in the highlights, so I'm going to keep those first looks with the bridesmaids with that B-roll footage, because I know I'm going to use it, but it's only just going to go in the highlights. So I'm going to kind of roll through this a bit more. Still seeing some more shots. There we finally get to the groom. We're outside. So we got a bunch of shots here of the groom waiting. There we see the bride coming along, groom waiting some more. So we're looking here, just trying to find where that first look is going to happen, which is right in here then. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all of these clips now. And again, I know all these, at least in my mind, are going to be part of the B-roll. So we're putting all this in the pre-ceremony footage. So that's all stuff that happened before this ceremony happened. And then right here, we're looking through. So looks like our first look, actually we had a few clips fire first before we did that. So there's our first look right there. And then we have the vowel reading right here. So with these clips, I'm just gonna make sure we're grabbing what we need. So it looks like if I grab, yep, so I am going to go ahead and grab these clips right here and throw those into my first look. And then these extra ones, I'm gonna go ahead and just put in my pre-ceremony. Then moving along here, same thing now. Now I'm gonna roll through this. I see all this great footage. Everything's looking pretty good for me. Just real quick, just blowing through everything till I can get to the ceremony. Looks like this will be the start of the ceremony about right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab these and put all these into pre-ceremony as well. Moving right along. So we got this as a ceremony. So like I said, I know there should at least be 2 clips. There we go, there's the 2 clips. And then we put those in the ceremony. Now we're gonna move these into the reception once we find our spot for that. So there we go. Now everything is nice and organized for us into these events. Then with this one that's left over, I always change this one into my edits. So then when I go to edit this wedding, now what I'm going to look at is I'm gonna go into my edits. That's where I'm gonna save everything. And then any major event that I'm gonna be looking for, I know it's already organized and good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna multicam all these major events now. So the first one up is the ceremony here. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab all the clips by selecting all, right click, and then new multicam. So we're gonna call that ceremony multi, just so we know what it is. So let's go ahead, we're going to use audio for synchronization, hide original clips from there, and just go ahead and hit OK. And now we wait, and this is where you never know how long it's gonna take. It could take seconds, it could take 30, 40 minutes, depending on how long your ceremony is, along with the type of audio that you're working with. So it's one of those things that you just plan ahead of time. But as I see here, it's going to be moving pretty quick here for us now that it's collected its thoughts and figured out where everything is at. Okay, now our multi-camera is done on the ceremony. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. We'll double click on it. So taking a look at everything here, I see that, yep, this clip here, like that, like I said, like it looked like just something misfired there. So I'm gonna go ahead and just delete this angle. We don't need it. And then in here too, I see that, okay, everything looks synced okay. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to delete these, because as you see, there is some peaking that's going on a little bit, or at least appears to be peaking in some of these clips. So that's why I'm gonna go ahead and delete the main edit and just work off of the Ds for my Taz cams. So the audio looks good there and synced. We have one more audio down here that I'm gonna move together. And then here are my video clips down here. I always like to look at things, so my video are on tracks 1, 2, 3. You can do that however you would like. That's just for me when I go to multicam, because I don't really work with audio in the multicam. I'm only working on video, so I just want to be able to quick and easily get a hold of it within those first 3 tracks. So just looking here real quick, I'm just going to make sure that we are seeing everything a-okay. And I don't really have any concerns based off of how these are started and stopped. I'm gonna double check this one here real quick, just because usually I don't have that big of a gap in between when I start and stop, as like you see here and here. But there is a possibility that maybe something happened and it didn't record right away, which if I recall correctly, that is what happened. Is I thought I hit it, I didn't. And got back to it right after I checked my cameras and then did hit record. So I'm just gonna double check, but it looks like, yep, that's kind of what happened. Not a big deal. Stuff like that can happen to you. We still have our other camera angles, so everything is pretty safe on that end. So it looks like we have everything. I'm looking at just the audio channels real quick. It does look like for the most part, everything is synced up correctly. I'm gonna double check this right here. I'm assuming that's when he was reading vows. So just looking at that, I'm not gonna worry about it a whole lot. We'll check the sync later, but for the most part, it looks like everything is locked in and it's solid with stuff. Let's move on to our next one then. All right, now that we have all of our multicams set up, we're ready to start kind of diving in a little deeper on the edit here. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna go ahead and start a new project. And I always call this first one selects. So what am I doing with this one? So what I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm gonna start going through all the footage that we put in the pre-ceremony as well as the reception and laying it all out onto one timeline. Some people might refer to this as a string out, and there's a lot of different ways that you can do this in Final Cut. One thing that I've seen a lot of people do is they like to go through the footage and they like to tag it, add in keywords, things like that, or they might even use the favorite button to go ahead and add favorites, and that's really effective as well. I've tried those different things. I've always just found it easier for me to be able to just buzz through all my clips, select what I want, have it laid out on a timeline, and then when I go to edit, I can remember where I kind of roughly put everything in that string out, and then I can just quickly go to what I want to find, grab the different shots, and it helps me kind of put things together too as I'm grabbing shots to be like, oh yeah, I have this one, and then I have this one over here, instead of having to go back and look for keywords or be like, okay, I want a bride shot here and things like that. I tend to edit things a little more sequentially, so that's why I prefer doing the string out method here. So what we're going to do is we got our selects, and I'm going to go to pre-ceremony, and one thing I always do as well, because we typically don't use the audio on these, I'm just going to go ahead and mute everything by selecting it all and then going over here and dragging that down to 0 there, so that now none of the clips have any sort of audio to them. And then I'm just going to quickly buzz through it. I'm going to hit S here so I can go through all this, and just looking at the drone footage here, I know I was just having some fun trying to get some random shots, so I'm just going to go ahead just real quick and be like, yep, those shots kind of look like something I'd probably grab. And then I'm putting those on the timeline over here. I'm gonna look real quick and just kind of see, not really seeing a shot that I like necessarily, though we are getting the hotel getting ready there, so I'll go ahead and add one little clip of that. Here we go. So I know this one is kind of one I will probably use. I think I did it 2 or 3 times. I don't really like that angle. And going up to the St. James, so that's a shot I'm going to use. I'm just taking a look here at the St. James. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Once I got kind of lined up, doing a shot like that. So this is what it looks like right here. This is my selects. So as you see, is pretty much in order of the wedding day. I have everything laid out, all the shots that I like. They're not necessarily perfect shots or anything like that. It just gave me a good idea of what I'm gonna be working with for the wedding day. We see that it's about 20 minutes that we have of footage to go through, which is awesome. That's about typical what we do for our 8-hour day with 3 to 5 minute highlight. That 20 minutes, it's gonna go really quick. But we have a lot of great footage, a lot of sunset stuff, dancing, things like that. So really happy with what we have here. So now what we're going to do, I shoot everything on my main camera at 60 frames a second. We're editing this in 24 frames a second. So what does that mean? That means I can slow down this footage without losing quality. So what I'm going to do now is actually going to slow down all the footage that I have on this timeline. Why am I doing that? Because at 80%, 60 frames a second, it doesn't look that noticeably slow to your eye. However, it does give it a little bit of like this dreamy state to it. So that's what we're going for. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and go to this tab here that looks like a speed dial, and we're gonna go to custom, and then we're going to change this to 80%. Go ahead and hit OK. And now all of our footage expands out. See that it adds about 5 minutes of time to it. But however, now when we're playing these back, let's see how it looks a little slower, but still fairly natural. So that's what we're kind of looking for. It's just adding just that little bit of slowness to it, gives it just a little bit more of that dreamier state. So with that, then we have our selects done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the major events, the ceremony, grand march speeches, first dances, first looks. And that's where I'm going to not only edit them together, but I'm going to be searching for my audio that I want to be working with. So what we'll do is we'll go up top here, start another new project, or Command N. I don't know why I never use the Command N. I never do. So we'll type in for ceremony there, make it sure it's 4K, 23.98, hit OK. Make sure that we are locked in on that. And then we are gonna go ahead and drop this in here for our multicam. And then with the multicam, let's go ahead into the view and we'll get our angles up. We're also gonna close out some of these other angles here because we don't really need those. So that then we can just focus on our multi-camera, what's going on here. I'm also gonna go up here and change it so that when I'm switching tracks, I'm just going to be switching video. I don't wanna have audio and video going together like it would by the default. And I'm not just gonna be editing audio here. And then I'm just gonna scrub through this real quick. Sometimes this happens where just how things are shifted when the audio starts recording and stuff. So we're just gonna go through here, find where things are gonna roughly start, which is about right here, it looks like. So actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back it up just slightly, delete that off. And same thing back here. I'm just gonna look real quick just to see when things would typically be done, which is about right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that out. But then what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna watch this in double time here, make sure that we're starting on a clip that looks good to start. So we're gonna start on angle 2. And then what I typically do is just start watching this in double time, and then, so speeding it up by tapping L twice. And then I'm just kind of rolling through this as quickly as I can, just looking for when my main camera angle here that I'm on, right when I go to make a turn, and then I'll back up real quick. And then just decide what looks better. If I go to angle 2 or angle 3, we'll go to angle 2 on this one. So we see the efficient there. And then same thing, just speeding on through. As soon as I see this next person coming, I'll go ahead and be like, all right, there it is. Let's grab that. And then same thing, just kind of watching, waiting until I make a movement that it's like, yep, let's cover that up. Right there it is. So then I'll back up just a little bit, and maybe just to mix it up a little, because it doesn't seem to matter what angle they're in before I make the change, I'll just go ahead and switch it over to 3 just to have a different angle, and we'll go from there. So with that, then you should be able to get started on your edit as far as getting all your events edited and then starting your highlight. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and dive into some of the finer points of when you're editing, such as color correction and audio tweaks. So make sure to stay tuned for that.